Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 1 compared to Total War Warhammer 3. Now, I decided to reinstall this game last night and play it out, see how it is, how it compares right now. This game is over 7 years old. It actually reached that milestone just a couple of days ago. So I was curious to see how Warhammer 1 would play for me as the dwarves, which are one of the worst races right now in Warhammer 3. How would the dwarves be in Warhammer 1? How would a campaign in Warhammer 1 compare to a campaign in Warhammer 3? Well, surprisingly, a campaign in Warhammer 1, while it's certainly a far more limited campaign, you just don't have the massive sprawling map that you do in Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Like, you look at the situation that I have in this particular territory. Sure, that its elements might be farther apart, but there's not necessarily more settlements over here than there are in Immortal Empires. However, because they are far apart, it certainly makes things a lot more interesting in the campaign. You will have plenty of turns over here, like this is turn 38. And I've been spending a lot of this campaign just traipsing around with Grumbrindle, which works surprisingly well considering all the movement points that he does get in his particular campaign. But it is certainly a more limited campaign. You are limited in diplomacy, you don't have any kind of deal evaluation, you can't trade territory, so diplomacy certainly does suck in a significant amount. But the campaign in itself is actually pretty interesting, surprisingly so. Like just not having a situation in a campaign to begin with where the majority of battles are just fighting freaking garrisons and you have to fight them manually because the auto-resolve is terrible. Just not having that miserable situation in a campaign makes it much better. And surprisingly, the auto-resolve, like if I were to take this army in a siege in Warhammer 3, I would like lose, I don't know, half my army or something like that. Here, yeah, I take a bit of damage on the dwarf warriors, sure. Right, I lose 150 6 men. I take the settlement, no problem. I move on, no issue. No issue whatsoever. I just move on. And you know what? I gotta say, compared to all the trash that I've been dealing with, because one of the problems I have with Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires that Warhammer 1 surprisingly doesn't have, at least playing the dwarves, but not just the dwarves, honestly. But one of the problems is just how horrible the auto-resolve is. Even if you go to the game settings in Warhammer 3 and you switch the battle difficulty, which affects auto-resolve, even if you lower that to literally easy to get the best result for yourself, you're still going to take substantial casualties. The only battles that I've had, the vast majority of the battles I've had in this campaign for 38 turns, and I gotta tell you, it was a lot of fun playing this, like far more so than I expected. The vast majority of the battles where I actually had to fight them were battles where were actual challenges. There weren't a situation like in Warhammer 3, because it can end up being the opposite. The vast majority of times when you're fighting a battle manually in Warhammer 3, it's in a siege battle, it's in a settlement, not necessarily in a field battle. Because in a field battle, you might have an auto-resolve benefit compared to a siege battle. So, although, like, I'm using the exact same army, surprisingly, I'm using the exact same army in Warhammer 1 that I would use in Warhammer 3 as the dwarf, so grudge throwers, quarrelers, dwarf warriors, iron drakes, it has actually been a lot more fun simply because of that particular situation in a campaign, which makes it a lot more enjoyable to engage in the campaign. Because when it comes to battles, I think we can all agree that having to fight all the mindless, meaningless battles in a campaign is not what's fun about the campaign. We want the meaty battles. We want like the battles against Grimgore or others, right? Like, I want to go up to Black Crag and be attacked by a full stack, and I want to fight that battle. I don't want to fight the battle for the Pillars of Grungni or Mount Squighorn in every single goddamn Dwarven campaign. And yet, surprisingly, in Warhammer 1, you don't. In Warhammer 3, You do. So if there's anything that Warhammer 1 has vastly better than Warhammer 3, at least as the dwarves, I can't speak for other races, though I did play a campaign as Karl Franz for a couple of turns, and I can tell you it's pretty solid as well. Like, it's incredible to think of the fact that the auto-resolve, one of the banes of our existence in Total War, the auto-resolve right now ends up being a lot better in Warhammer 1 than Warhammer 3, just because of the idiotic bullshit benefit that we do get currently. Like, look at the siege battle, right? I think it's because settlements, siege settlements, don't have any kind of defender benefit, nor should they really, because there's no particular reason they should have such a benefit.
How can I help? Yes.
And by the way, this campaign has not gone my way. Like, I had a full stack as Fargrim, kind of ended up losing it as well. And now I'm kind of like stuck trying to hold the ground that I've gotten, engaging in diplomacy, trying to get various diplomatic dealings going, all that kind of good stuff. And it is significantly more fun to do so at the moment, despite all of the issues, despite all of the problems that you do have in a game like this, despite all of those major issues that I gotta deal with, it is a heck of a lot more fun to do so. I'm not joking, I'm not trying to pull anyone's leg over here or bullshit them around. It is a better experience to deal with. Because, like, first off, you don't have to deal with the same number of settlement battles. I'll try and explain the reason why. So you don't have to deal with the same number of settlement battles. That in itself is a major advantage of this game, because the settlements are far more spread out. Furthermore, like, I understand, right, that when we're thinking about a game like, when we're thinking about a game like Warhammer 3 with the vast scope, etc., obviously there were a lot of sacrifices for the sake of that, to be clear. Sure, I understand. I think we all do understand that. But at the same time, like, one of the problems is, like, we end up in this situation where we just have all of these settlements, settlement battles again and again and again. And the problem with having so many settlements, right? The issue that I would say exists with respect to that is, with so many settlements in a campaign, it's also an advantage for you as the player. Let me explain why. Because those settlements, obviously... Sorry, I was just losing my voice. Those settlements obviously confer a defensive advantage, especially when it comes to auto-resolve, so it makes the AI less willing to attack you in the first place. Whereas you don't have that auto-resolve advantage in Warhammer 1. So over here, I'm just dealing with Warzag. Like, to be clear, the AI is pretty stupid in the game. Like, it's gonna make a bunch of questionable decisions. Though it will be aggressive, it will attack you. Though how they attack you, like Tempelhof coming to attack me, was a bit of a, like, what the hell is going on? What is Vlad doing? No, yeah, what is Manfred and what are Manfred and Vlad doing over there? Like, in the sense that they just allow Tempelhof to do absolutely nothing. Performance is overall better, though there's still issues like, yeah, this kind of lag that doesn't happen quite as often in Warhammer 3. But like overall FPS tends to be much better. The in-turn time is significantly better, etc., etc. I mean, it makes sense because Warhammer 1 was the game that went 64-bit as opposed to 32-bit. It brought about a major performance boost. But then Creative Assembly went completely nuts with Mortal Empires and Immortal Empires. Now, I do appreciate Immortal Empires. Imagine Warhammer 3 without Immortal Empires. Yeah, that game would be dead and buried, but I think they've sacrificed a lot on that altar for the sake of it. Like, you have intro cinematics that are actually, you know, rendered, pre-rendered, as opposed to like just the cartoons that they have in Warhammer 3. You have various quest objectives and all that. Like, Realms of Chaos wishes it was as good of a campaign as this one. This one is. And you have this major fight between the dwarves, the dwarves as a whole, and the greenskins as a whole that's playing out across the entirety of the Battlelands. Like over here, I was able to take Black Crag from Grimgore. And basically put him on a significant defensive footing, and now I am just dealing with Warzag after dealing with his capital. And gotta give credit to Cazador's AI, because, well, it's interesting to actually have an AI partner that actually seems to achieve quite a bit. And then you don't have the really huge annoyance that you do have with managing confederations. Like Cazador had conquered a lot of territory before he agreed to confederate with me. It's certainly a very different perspective. Okay, that's a giant. Let's go deal with it. Now, of course, there are drawbacks. The melee meta just doesn't work quite as well as it does in Warhammer 3 because, guess what? The AI, like, in terms of like public order and difficulty settings, like the design of it is overall, I would say, significantly worse. Because you do have this situation where the AI gets a bunch of major benefits. Though, surprisingly, like, the dwarves, like, sure, they don't have oath gold, they don't have the items, etc., etc., etc. But, like, overall, like, they feel a lot better to play, maybe because they're not just terrible when so many other races are so very strong in the game. I guess, you know, that obviously is... that obviously is important, how it is relative to other, how a race is relative to the other races on a campaign. Because the Greenskins are still an absurdly powerful race in the game right now. Like, they're getting high-level settlements. The amount of AI benefits is kind of crazy, though, like just how high-level their settlements are, but I can certainly still take advantage of that situation for my own benefit by taking over their settlements. That's the thing, you know, if you give the AI major growth benefits, that just means we can get a lot of income from sacking and looting settlements. That's really what I've done over here in this particular campaign. Alright, so I guess we killed Warzag there. Alright, let's try and deal with those boar boys. Like, if this army is eliminated, it's all over. That's GG.
At last! Miners! Quarrelers! Yes! Ah! Dwarf warriors! They have wronged us! Ha! Quarrelers! Vengeance! For mountain
So there's fewer battles overall.
ranged firepower!
Like, while you will, like, the campaign pace in general is slower. Like, there's fewer battles you're fighting, and the battles you do fight feel generally more impactful. Partly because, yeah, you don't have to actually fight every single minor insignificant battle. I mean, I guess it depends on the race, right? Like, some races have a much worse than others, probably, with regards to that result. But the battles you are fighting are the major ones. Like this. Like, the vast majority of the battles I've fought have typically been like these. Some sieges, sure, for provincial capitals, a couple of them. But honestly, like, one. No joke. Like, I think I fought one siege in this entire campaign. And, like, of settlement battles, 0. Yeah, no joke. 0 freaking settlement battles in an entire campaign. Imagine the joy of that. Like, it did cost me in terms of units, sure.
Is it time?
There was a price to pay for doing that, because I did end up losing more units. And the dwarves are still pretty good at not resolve, even, like, for the same reasons they're good in not resolve in Warhammer 3, they're good in not resolve in this game as well. Their high armor, their high leadership. Does play a major role in respect to that. Now if we manage... Oh! Get him out. If he dies, it's all over. I wasn't really paying attention there. Oh, I might end up losing this one. Yeah, probably so. That's fine. Although I have certainly lost a lot. Oh, he had that war army. That's what nuked me. Okay. Well, this campaign is over, or is it? Yeah. But it was actually quite a lot of fun to experience it. You do have to play Warhammer 1 in a very different way. You can't take the same stupid risks as you do in Warhammer 3. Although sometimes you absolutely can. you'll just end up having to deal with a lot more rebellions, and a lot of issues are gonna crop up again and again and again.
Prepare your defense. Oh, mighty Lord, the fates have surely selected you for greatness. Thanks to my guidance, your tremendous power grows as if driven by some divine power.
I barely got my feet off the ground over here before Chaos decided to come in.
Iron-willed.
Now, imagine it, it's just turned 40 and Chaos is... It's, mind you, it's the early waves. Archaon has not arrived over here. It's just like the initial invasion waves. But yeah, things are going out of hand. It's not a lost campaign, though, because I still have Cazador in his forces.
I'll get on it.
But yeah, things are certainly gonna start going in a pretty crazy way pretty damn quickly.
To battle.
Well,
Yes, lad.
Costine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.